When do you play by the rules? And when do you need to write your own? Stepping off the plane in Kigali that summer, I'd actually become a first-hand witness to genocide. I was responsible for making sure that all 267 Americans made it out alive. I've learned that if I want to be the change that I want to see in this world, I should be a great advocate for change from within.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the next game changer, Lora Lane. رحبوا معي بلورا لين.
Hi, everyone. I am thrilled to be here, and how inspiring to follow the last speaker. She gives true meaning to something that has been a quote that's been a part of my life. When I have charted my career, I never imagined I'd end up in Kigali, Rwanda. And in Kigali is where I learned that sometimes in your career, when you need a warrior or a hero, sometimes you have to become that. And our last speaker clearly demonstrates what it means to be a great warrior and a hero for so many women. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story. When I was growing up, I grew up in a very small town outside of Chicago, Illinois, called Des Plaines. And everybody looked the same, talked the same, everybody ate the same foods. There was nothing different and beautiful and diverse about the town that I grew up in. But I had a father, a he-for-she father, who said, you know what, Laura, you've got it in you to change the world. Dream big, because little girls with big dreams become women of great vision. And so I decided that I was going to pursue a career in the Foreign Service. Now, at the time, you have to know that women weren't exactly invited into the Foreign Service. They didn't want people to be on the front lines to have the women representing the country. In fact, at the time that I joined the Foreign Service, I came in because a law was changed to allow more women in. Women had previously been told that if they got married or they got pregnant, they needed to leave the diplomatic corps and leave the work to the men. I decided, you know what, I want to be a great advocate for my country. And I got the opportunity because a courageous group of men and women came together and asked the U.S. State Department to change its law to allow more women in, whether they were married or not. It was the most amazing experience for me serving in my first tour of duty, Bogota, Colombia. A humbling experience, though. I served at the height of the drug violence in that country. And as you can tell, I may be powerful inside, but I wasn't powerful on the outside. It was very easy for me to be overtaken, and in fact, I was assaulted 3 times on official duty, a very humbling experience that taught me, you know what, sometimes you need to get strength by partnering with others. I just happened to pick a fabulous U.S. Marine who happened to be Greg Lane, assigned to be on my side as I was working in my embassy functions, going out across the countryside. He ended up becoming the most wonderful man in my life, another he-for-she man who said he would take me as his wife and decided to follow me in my career to my next tour of duty. My next tour of duty was Kigali, Rwanda, which was probably one of the most game-changing moments in my life. I went because I wanted to make a difference in the world. I went because it was the opportunity to be a peacemaker, to bring the Rwandan rebels and the Rwandan military together and foster a lasting peace in the country through the Arusha Peace Accords. Little did I know that there were too many in the country who wanted to destabilize that peace. I had my mission, though. I would cross the DMZ every week, going to meet with the rebel forces to try to bring them down to Kigali, to try to build those bonds of trust. It wasn't easy, I promise you, because I was the only woman who would ever cross the border every day. At times, when I'd reach checkpoints, sometimes the soldiers at the checkpoints would force me to get on my knees, ask me why I was meeting with the rebel scum to the north, hold guns to my head and tell me I was a stupid woman who should not be crossing the DMZ and meeting with anybody up north. But you know what? I found a way to create those bonds of trust at that DMZ checkpoint every time? I did it in a woman's way. I brought a little bit of banana bread. I brought a little bit of food. I thought, you know, those soldiers are probably a little tired and a little hungry at these checkpoints. Maybe I'll bring them something, because my grandma always taught me that the best way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So I thought, okay. And I slowly won those guards over. I developed a real bond of trust with the rebels, and I also developed a bond of trust with the military back in Kigali. And slowly but surely, we started bringing the two forces together. And they started to see the possibility of one Rwanda. Not, you know, the Hutus and the Tutsis, but one Rwanda. Sadly, as you all know the story, Habyarimana's plane was shot down, and unfortunately, genocide unfolded. In the span of 3 months, over 800,000 people would be killed. My heart was destroyed. I had joined the Foreign Service to foster peace, to create bonds of trust between people, and instead, I was the first-hand witness to genocide. In those moments when I was in the middle of the evacuation efforts, I remember thinking, how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to save people's lives? And unfortunately, at that time, all the communications lines went down, and there was very few ways to reach anybody other than the radio network system. And I realized at that moment, there's nobody that's going to come and save us. We need to save everyone that we can. And in that moment, I decided I need to become that warrior and fight for as many people to live. I need to become that hero for all those innocents that maybe they didn't carry an American passport, but they had the right to live and see another day. And so in those moments, leading the evacuation efforts, yes, we did bring out 267 Americans out of the country alive. But what we also did is we made a lot of honorary Americans, a lot of people who made it to the embassy and said, please give me safe passage to make it to Burundi, to have another day, to help try to foster that new peace. And so that's exactly what we did. Rwanda was probably the most awful experience anybody could go through, right? My entire staff was killed but one, because I couldn't reach them in the middle of the fighting. But I was able to save a lot of other people who, in the end, became the basis for what is now modern-day Rwanda. If you ever have the chance to visit Rwanda today, it's an inspiring story of hope. Because out of the ashes of genocide, what arose is a thriving country. And you know what that country is now based off of? A lot of economic empowerment of women. You see, in the genocide, most of the men were killed. The women fled with the children, and when they returned to the country, they decided they weren't going to wait for a hero or a warrior. They were going to become those very heroes and warriors, and they were going to rebuild Rwanda together. And so you now have a country in which the women control a lot of the economic levers of power. It is a parliament that has almost a clear majority of women in control of all the political rules, laws, and regulation. And they've set the tone for how Rwanda should be today. And what you see is rising literacy. You see communities that are strong, where justice has been meted out, but in a compassionate way, to allow the country to rebuild. You see a country where the growth and opportunity is invested back into families and communities, and the country has gone from fifth world to third world. I was so proud to be a part of that, because I saw that this was the way you foster lasting peace. By empowering women. It was the secret to the success that we saw. From genocide, we see opportunity, and it's because of the changes that were wrought by the women that were finally given the opportunity to be able to change their country for the better. So in that crucible of Rwanda, in that crucible of genocide, I became that champion for women's economic empowerment, and it has been a part of every aspect of my career. In different parts of my career, I have held positions that really didn't often have a lot of women in them. I was at the U.S. Trade Representative's office next because, by the way, I resigned my commission from the State Department. I had dreams of being an ambassador one day, but for me, when a country and an international community turn the other way and are witnesses to genocide and do nothing, I thought, then this is not my place if this is not where the change can happen. And that's why I went to the U.S. Trade Representative's office, which is the negotiating arm for the U.S. government, fostering trade agreements with countries. There, I saw the opportunity to build on the kinds of changes and economic opportunities that foster lasting peace. I had amazing challenges in that oftentimes across the negotiation table, it was mostly men. But I learned again how to build those bridges and create real allies for change, real he for she partners who were able to foster those kinds of trade agreements that created economic opportunity for all. I next went to Time Warner, an entertainment company where women were often measured by 36, 24, 36. Their measurements and not the contributions they could make to the company. Instead, I sought out within the company the greatest allies and champions I could find. And every single time, it was always men saying, you know that Laura, she's got some good ideas. Let's figure out how we tap into, telling those stories of women's economic empowerment. So at Time Warner, I spent a lot of time getting involved in a lot of the filmmaking that told the stories about how women can be powerful agents for change. Next, I went to Citigroup. I learned that, you know what, in the world of business, money makes the world go round. But guess what? Financial services was a very male-dominated institution. I remember in my early days of joining Citigroup, walking into meeting rooms and being asked if I could take people's coffee orders and if I was ready to take notes. And I remember thinking, if they only knew, I'm the one presenting and they're going to be taking notes next. I learned, though, that the power of tapping into financial services through money and access to finance, that's the key to being able to forge new economic opportunities for women. And I learned the powerful lesson of how we have to foster the kind of programs so that even though we have the trade agreements that have been negotiated that tell about the economic opportunities that are out there, even though we've told the stories of women that can succeed and you've been able to see them on the big screen making big differences in their world, even when you've given them access to finance, you still have to help bring them to markets. So that's why I ended up at the fabulous company that I'm at, UPS. We're really proud to be Expo partners because of the opportunity it gives to tell that story again. The story of the United Arab Emirates connecting the world and telling all those stories about the beauty of diversity and how powerful inclusion can be. At UPS, I had the opportunity, again, to be brought up into the company at a very senior level because at the time at UPS, there weren't a lot of senior women in the organization. Not a lot of women went into the trucking industry. But I decided that this was the next bold opportunity I had to take because I knew that in order to empower women, we needed to be using logistics to get women from their home markets to any customers anywhere around the world. And so I joined the leadership team at UPS, but I did one thing first. I showed not only could I be a senior leader at UPS, but I could drive a package car. I could hook up a triple tractor trailer. They wouldn't let me fly the planes, and I understand that. And with the amazing person that just spoke before, I'm glad she's flying the planes and not me. But I got the opportunity to get involved in every facet of the business, and I learned that there was an untapped reality in UPS. And that untapped reality was that we were marketing our services to all kinds of businesses around the world, but women-owned businesses were underserved. And so in partnership with an amazing he-for-she CEO, our CEO, David Abney, believes in women's economic empowerment. He gave me the money, the resources, and the amazing talent of my team to go out and develop these women's economic empowerment programs that help the women who have a great idea or a great business, help them reach the world. We've been doing webinars and conferences and specialized trainings where we're teaching women about what it takes to be able to export, to understand the rules at the borders, to understand how to get their products to market. We've partnered with the ITC, we've partnered with She Trades, we've partnered with WeConnect, and just yesterday you heard, we partnered with WeFi. And we're out there making sure that no woman doesn't have the opportunities that this big world has to offer. I will tell you that along the way, I've learned tremendous lessons about what it takes for women to succeed, because I've seen it in my own career. It's not like doors were automatically opened, except some doors were opened because people believed in me. I had amazing he-for-she men that always said, no matter what industry sector I was in, we believe in you. You can do this. I had a dad who told me I could be anything. I have a brother who challenges me every single time. I have a husband who says, I will follow you. I will give you strength. And when you don't have confidence, I'm going to remind you that I believe in you. And I wanted to be that person that instills that in women everywhere. And at UPS, I finally had that opportunity because I believe that the world can be a more peaceful and prosperous place if everybody has the opportunity to engage in economic growth and can bring their authentic selves and their talents to the world, because that's how you foster lasting peace. And that lasting peace is worth fighting for. I learned it from the crucible of Rwanda. I don't ever want to relive that experience again. Instead, I want to be that warrior and that hero that the world needs so that we can create that world that we're going to see in the pavilions at the Expo 2020. But it takes a lot of work for us to come together to achieve those dreams that we're going to see in the Innovation Pavilion or the Women's Pavilion or the Mobility Pavilion. What it takes is partnership. It takes more he-for-she advocacy. It takes more legal foundations to change the rules, and it takes that public-private partnership. Governments and the private sector coming together. I'm proud to stand before you and be that warrior and that hero for change that says, together, we can accomplish anything. Because the reality is, the future is female. Watch us come. Thank you.